Like they
Sorry, I forgot to record. My bad, Yash.
they're missing like the religious connotation, as most of them are agnostic. But as far as like at least having an initial group of people, they're really helpful for me in my life.
It's amazing. Shinola?
I don't know. I like without Jesus on the table, I'm stumped. So I'm like, who can walk me through that? Like, I'd have to think about my next choice.
Fair enough.
Mine, I'd say the person who has been a spark of inspiration all throughout my life, Kanye West. Probably not the most conventional answer, but
Go,
a man
Yash.
who
Love
was
it.
brashingly like, wanting to go create his own path. So I would say that that definitely played a role. And this might not be the most fitting answer given his path that he's taken on now, but in that moment in time, I would go towards that.
What version of Kanye you're going back to?
I'd say the one that we don't know now, the old Kanye.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Okay, so if we move into the second canto is all about they're not quite to hell yet, but they're moving out of the dark forest, and Dante is starting to have doubts about his ability to make this journey. He's not sure that he can do it, and this whole canto is about Virgil sort of slowly convincing him that he is capable. So if this is my favorite part, my favorite part comes in this canto, and what happens is he knows what he has to do. So we're going to look at lines 31. This is the label is bruised by cowardice on the outline, and I'm gonna read a pretty significant portion of this because this is, like I said, this is my favorite part of this, and this is probably the one I resonate with most in my life currently. So Dante's having doubts, and line 31 he says, "But I, who grants my coming, and for what? I'm not Aeneas, I'm not Saint Paul, no one, not I myself could think me worthy. So if I should enter on this quest, I fear it would be mad and foolish, but you're wise. You understand more than my words can say." So he's like, who am I to make this? Like, I'm a nobody. I'm not good enough to make this journey. And then he says, "And as a man who unwills what he wills, changing his plan for every little thought till he withdraws from any kind of start, so did I turn my mind on that dark verge, for thinking ate away the enterprise, so prompt in the beginning to set forth." I think all of us have experienced this. There's an excitement of a new thing. We're excited about something, or we want to do something. We have an interest, a desire. And if we have any sort of overthinking tendency, then what is about to happen to Dante here, happens to us. Thinking eats away the enterprise. Right on the verge of it. So prompt in the beginning to set forth. C.S. Lewis has a line, basically in Screwtape Letters, where he talks about sort of the energy, excitement, enthusiasm of any new endeavor kind of passes through this trough of disappointment. And so you have the burst of initial excitement, and then you pass into this period where you're sort of doubtful and you're overthinking. That's what Dante's referring to here when he says on the verge, when he talks about thinking ate away my enterprise. So it's a very human thing that's happening here. Happens before every great adventure. It's a part of the hero's journey. It's part of all of it. And sort of this is the valley of disappointment. And that's what's happening here. Now, Virgil, not to be, he don't take no crap. And so he says, "If I have understood your words aright," replied the shade of that great-hearted man. So he's referring to Virgil. "Your spirit has been bruised by cowardice, which many a time so weighs a man's heart down, it turns him from a glorious enterprise. As shadows fool the horse that shies away." Now, I also love the Roman Stoic Seneca, and he's got, the shadow fools the horse that shies away. So we suffer more in imagination and reality. So it's the same thing that's happening here. Virgil, as the guide of Dante, is looking at sort of Dante's doubts, and he's saying, no, I'm not going to let you, like, you're claiming humility here. You're saying, who am I? But what's actually happening is cowardice. You've been bruised by cowardice. And your imagination is making a whole bunch of different monsters, putting a whole bunch of different monsters in your way that's preventing you from making this journey. And so that's basically what Dante's telling him, is he's like, listen, no chance. And now to appeal further to Dante's sort of idea of love, and to really sort of convince him, it goes back to, he's got to make an appeal to Beatrice and be like, listen, if you're having doubts, just know what waits, like why you're doing this in the first place. So this is classic, like reminding him of his why he's doing this. And it's to go see Beatrice. And so Virgil's telling the story of how he even got sent to be Dante's guide in the first place. And this is line 52. He says, I was among the souls in limbo. When so lovely and blessed a lady called to me, I asked for her grace of a command. Her eyes were flashing brighter than the stars, and she addressed me with an angel's voice, sweetly and softly, in words such as these. O kind and gracious soul of Mantua, whom the world still renounds and ever shall, whose fame will last as long as the earth endures. The friend I love, and not a fortunate friend, has been so checked along his journey up the desert slope, he has turned back for dread. And from what I have heard of him in heaven, I fear he may have wandered so far wrong. My rising for his help may come too late. Go then, and with the beauty of your words and any skill you have, set him free, help him, that I may be consoled. I am the blessed Beatrice who bids you go. Love makes me speak, and bade me hasten from that place that stirs my longing to return. When I shall stand before my Lord, I vow often to speak to him in praise of you. So this is Virgil telling the story of Beatrice, the soul in paradise, coming to him in limbo, saying, hey, somebody I really care about has lost his way, and I know he's going to be great, so please go to him, help him out, and be his guide. And so that's what Virgil tells Dante in order to like sort of stir him and be like, listen, man, if you don't make this journey, then what you are doing is you are sacrificing the love that the one that you love offered to you. Then what she did is all for naught. It's basically, this is if you're looking at my outline, it's like this is the love that moves. So when he hears these words, so this is, if we go to line 130. So he listens to, well, let's back up actually to 121. So Virgil tells them about Beatrice, and then he also talks about a few of the other souls in paradise. And Virgil sort of ends his plea for Dante to get back on the saddle with this. He says, why let such cowardice come take your heart? Why are you not afire and bold and free, seeing that 3 such blessed ladies in heaven care for your healing from their court above? That's sort of his final, like, what are you doing? Like, these people love you. They care enough about you to send for you, to try to help you. And you're just going to throw away the unwelcome sort of gift, the love that you can't receive. So Dante finally in 130 says, so did my weary courage surge again, and such sweet boldness rushed into my heart. I cried out as a man at last set free. O Lady of compassion and my help, and you most gracious, who obeyed her wish, soon as you have heard the truth she spoke to you. Your words have put my heart in order now, kindling no great longing to set on. You've turned me to our first intention to go. And then from that point on, that's the end of Canto II. And then we move to Canto III, where it's the gates of hell. So I'll pause there. So I guess the looking at some of the study questions, I think one of the things is to reflect on and pause on for a second is thinking about like where in our lives we either have in the past or are currently sort of letting our spirit be bruised by cowardice, or where is thinking eating away our enterprises? Where are we holding back? Where are we not sort of giving all that we feel called to be giving? If anybody has something that's sort of top of mind and on their heart, obviously would love for you to share. I'll start, I guess. For me, it's the process of doing this class itself is kind of my version of that. I've sort of felt a pull to to lean more into the educational side and speaking about these things in the text that I love, and sort of bringing other people in to participate in this project with me. And so I was talking with Shanoa about this the other day. Last year, because I try to read the Inferno every year, and it's like last year when I read the Inferno, the lines about thinking eating away enterprises, and spirits being bruised by cowardice that turn men away from enterprises. I couldn't help but feel like I was still in this state of holding back, of not doing what it felt like I was being tugged to do with all of the force that I had to do it. And so for me, this class itself is sort of one way that I feel myself sort of pushing it back against what I think is that natural human tendency to dissuade ourselves with doubt. So I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to talk through or that comes to their mind. But now the floor is open for anybody to do so. Desmond.
I mean, it's kind of casual, but I guess social media, like I'm always afraid of posting on social media because I'm like, what are people going to think if I post this? Or am I going to look stupid if I post, myself doing whatever I want to do or whatever I want to post? So I just don't post anything at all. And I see like, everybody else is like living these perfect lives on social media and they're going out and doing things. I'm like, oh, my life sucks. I don't have anything to post or anything to do. So I just kind of like feel like, oh, I should be posting more, but I'm like afraid to post anything. So I'm just like Mr. Silent Guy.
Well, I don't know if this is going to help at all or not, but I'm going to take the sting out of it and say, whatever you post, it's going to be bad.
Oh, there you go.
Like it is. It's going to stink. When you do it first, it's going to. So it's like you kind of got to accept that, because in order for it to be good, in order for it to be exactly what you want it to be, it's got to be bad. The second thing I'll say is, if you put it out and people unfollow you, if that's the fear, good.
Yeah, right.
They're not your people anyway. So it's like
Sure.
I can't even remember who says it, but it's this idea of like, you'll never know who can love the person you don't show. And so like at its best, social media can be a vehicle for expressing our truest essence and serving as a beacon to call other people into our lives who share those values. And so by not using it, you are depriving yourself in some way, shape, or form from that discovery of there is a beauty behind social media that can exist if it's used intentionally. And so there might be a shedding period. There might be a dark forest period where you feel like your old life is dying and you're losing old people. Good. Because then that opens up this sort of like spring of new things to flower.
It's true. It's a good point, man.
I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah. Sure.
Anybody else? Yash, I know you got something. I think he's busy.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of checking out, so nothing.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any questions?
No personal example, but I love how cowardice here in Canto II tied in, which I thought, to Canto III, talking about like the craven people, the worthless wretches who never lived.
Yeah.
And how Virgil is preparing Dante for don't be a coward, don't be a bitch. And then the first thing you see before you get to hell is people that were craven and worthless wretches that didn't live.
Yes. Yeah, so that's a great point. So another thing that you'll notice kind of throughout the Inferno is there's also a self-reflection aspect to this where, and you'll see it when Dante stops and wants to talk to the souls in each of the Infernos. It's because he recognizes the potential in himself to join these folks. He sees sort of the seeds of what is happening to them, and that's what makes this journey so scary for him, is he sees what he's on the precipice of doing to himself. And so that's where it's like easy is the descent to hell and hard is the way back up, because this whole journey is about him sort of coming face to face with the energies in himself. So that's a great point, Bob. I'm glad you brought that up.
No, I got one that came to mind too. Yeah. So I never would have thought of it this way, but I think it's where like my biggest point of anxiety So I jumped off. I was owned a business, selling it, moving on, and now I'm basically selling myself as just an independent consultant. And as I'm putting proposals together, I I found myself already declining before, like, oh, like they've already declined me before I've even finished the proposal. And
Mhm.
it's one of those things where like that's something that I'm really having to overcome, is selling myself and like confidently putting out there and knowing that you bring value to others before I'm already like, oh, let's just not even have this meeting. There's, before I've already turned myself down.
Yeah, it's the old self-rejection. I think probably most of us on this call could identify with that in some way, shape, or form, whether in romantic relationships or opportunities or jobs. I certainly have been a victim of that. Um, so I appreciate you sharing, man. That's like I mean, obviously awareness is the first part of it. And it's just like finding a way, finding some actual actionable way to remind yourself in the moment not to self-reject. Because it's easy to sit here after the fact and sort of diagnose where you've done it in the past. It's much harder to remember in the moment not to do it. And so I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's like going so far as like a background on your phone or like a sticky note somewhere where you'll see it on a regular basis. And it's just starting to sort of rewire that default setting from self-rejection to there's I had a negotiations professor in law school, and he had this saying. He said, "See how it plays in Peoria." Peoria, Illinois. Quick tangent. Peoria, Illinois. When circuses were still a thing, they used to try their circus in Peoria, Illinois, because they thought it had such a demographic that they thought if it played well in Peoria, Illinois, it would play well in the rest of the country. So before they went on a road show, they would see how it plays in Peoria. And so that's like my way of like, I don't know, that stuck with me. And so whenever I'm like, this idea of just like sending messages, another one that's really helpful for me, sorry, that just because I really struggle with this. And I think if you think about it in the context of like sending messages in a bottle without any expectation, like you can assume the answer is no, but still send the message in the bottle. So it's like when you send it, it's like sending a message, but like never expecting to see it back or hear back about it, because all you're worried about is sending the next message out into the ocean in a bottle. It's like eventually you're gonna get ones back, and so then it's like it's focusing more on the sending, the act of doing the thing that is going to lead to yeses and responses without focusing on sort of the result of any one thing. And so if you just focus on, all right, I'm going to send this message, I'm going to send this message, I'm going to send this message, and you get sort of caught up in that, they're going to start coming back. And then the next thing you know, like you find that you're not losing all these opportunities, or not self-rejecting yourself because you're focused on how do I send the next message in the bottle. That's been super helpful for me.
That was a great example. That's helpful. I like that a lot.
I hope it's useful. So we only got a little bit of time left, but we'll pick back up on Canto III next week. I'm just going to introduce it here. I love the lines above the gates of hell. So Canto III is all about sort of this initial stages of hell. They come in the beginning to the gates. And so these infamous gates say these words, and they're in all caps, which is amazing. I am the way into the city of woe. I am the way into eternal pain. I am the way to go among the lost. So as we move through this, another thing I want you to keep in mind throughout this whole thing is this is the inversion of heaven. So even though we're not going to get to it, it's paradise, but you can think about like the opposite of these things is what would be written above the gates of heaven in Dante's universe. So this is the anti-heaven. Justice caused my high architect to move. This one is weird. So what Dante is saying here is that hell is a creation of God. I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to ask if anybody what reactions are to that, and why you think he's saying that justice caused my high architect to move. Anybody have a guess?
Why he created hell?
Yeah.
You mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, why does Dante have God create hell? Doesn't that defeat this idea of a good God?
I mean, on the Bible, there's like always mentions of punishments for sin and the reason why people go to hell.
Isn't
But
it the
what do
purpose
you-
of
what do
beauty
you think?
that if you've got ugly things in heaven, it's not heaven, so send them off somewhere else to hell, like the opposite of beauty?
Yeah, I
Does
guess
it give like a baseline?
I'm trying to like poke at is, how do you reconcile the idea of a good God with the idea of hell?
How do you know what good is if you don't know what hell is? Does that, I mean, like, it sets a baseline of, it establishes what good is, because you have the opposing not good.
Or even the balance of things, like there's light and dark, night and day, heaven and hell. If he created, light, night and dark, I mean,
Yeah.
day and night.
Yeah, I mean, those are all great answers. The only thing I'll add is it kind of goes back to what I mentioned at the beginning of the summary is, in order for justice to exist, to be a real thing, in Dante's worldview, there has to be a hell. In order for people to receive what they did to people on earth, or receive what they did on earth, in his view, there has to be some sort of punishment that happens. Now, if you step back as like a human being, we could make the argument that, like I mentioned earlier, the punishment that you receive is sort of the internal dysmorphia that happens on a spiritual level as you do the things. And so that's where it's like, there's one way of reading Dante where this is all just a poetic representation of what happens internally. That's one way of reading it. Another way is reading it is that, that Dante thought this was actually how the afterlife exists. And so, but it raises those questions, right? The reason he's talking about justice caused my high architect to move. What he's saying is the ideal, if we go back to Plato, the ideal of justice, in order for it to exist, the idea that people receive according to their contribution, there has to be a place where people are punished for what they did to others. So that's one of those lines where it's like, the first few times I read it, I'm like, I don't know what to make of that. So I just wanted to pause and talk about that for a little bit. So continuing on, gates of hell. Divine omnipotence created me, the highest wisdom and the primal love. Again, that's weird. What Dante's saying here is that it's love. Love created hell. It's a strange thing to grapple with. Think about it. Before me, there were no created things, but those that last forever, as do I. And then the infamous line, abandon all hope, you who enter here. So we're going to end on this today. But what I want to ask here is why? Why is he saying, why the lines, abandon all hope, you who enter here?
Oh, because you're about to go into hell. Like, you're screwed if you go in there. Like,
yeah, but why is it hope? Why is it hope that's being abandoned?
No hope in hell.
Why is there no hope in hell?
In life, you can
'cause
make changes. In the world, you can make changes in your own life and plot your own destiny. Whereas in hell, you've got one destiny ahead of you.
So I laid a little bit of a trap for you, just because we haven't gotten to that point yet. In Canto I, you're right. One of the images. So we'll meet the ferryman, Charon, who's gonna sort of ferry the souls into hell, and he's got this oar. So Dante imagines basically, like, if you go to Gustave Doré, Desmond, I know you're familiar with Gustave. So in the scene where he shows Charon, he's got an oar and he's shepherding people onto this boat. going back to Plato, there's something we have to understand about Plato and hence Dante because of Plato and Aristotle. There's this idea of like all of us have an end. Everything has an end. So you can say an acorn has an end as an oak. Things all have, it's called a telos. So if we have an end, you view things hierarchically, you can see how Augustine baptized Plato, and then Thomas Aquinas baptized Aristotle. But you can see how sort of the development into the Christian concept of the telos or end was that God was the end of man. We all had sort of this telos inside us. And so when he's saying abandon hope, and you sort of envision Charon with his oar as something like scissors. So if there's a thread that connects us to God, as they're moving on this ship going into hell, Charon with his oar is severing that. So we're going to encounter this multiple times throughout it. So the souls in hell can never reach back up toward their true end. And that is why they are forever in agony and suffering, because they have been cut off forever with the fulfillment of themselves as a being. So that is sort of why they're abandoning hope. It's a hope of ever reaching that end. That's what they're abandoning when they enter into hell. So I don't know if anybody has any last parting thoughts. I want to be very respectful of our time. I apologize for taking so long. My mom and dad are going to kill me for not recording this whole thing. But I appreciate you guys all showing up. I hope this was enjoyable. Please send me feedback real time, either on email or through text, in terms of things you would like more of, less of, structure-wise, anything. Like I said, this is kind of a joint participation project with all of us. So any way we can make it better for everybody, totally open and welcome. I don't know if anybody has any parting wisdom or thoughts they would like to share before we separate ways leading into next week.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I'm excited. I don't like Seven's one of my favorite movies, and they reference this like all the time in that movie. So it's pretty cool. And you mentioned I love like the artist for the books. This is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Since I've never read the book before.
fantastic. All right,
This
gang.
comes at a really good time. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you all showing up. This is awesome. Well, we'll have like probably somewhere between like what we had today, like 7 to 12 any given week. I don't know if you guys have any interest in like shoot me a note, I guess. If you have any interest in like being connected as a group, to like ask each other questions, or like somewhere where you can sort of like drop your thoughts in real time, and then we could talk about them sort of in the class. If you have things that pique your interest as you're reading, I want to find some way for us to sort of record those things and then talk about them as a group. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I'm going to employ Yash to help me with that. Maybe it's like a Discord or something. I don't know. But if you have any thoughts on how you would want to see that done, let me know too. But otherwise, dinner time for me. And this was awesome. I appreciate you all showing up.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks so
That
much.
was awesome.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
guys.
See you guys. See you next week.
Adios, everybody.